go ahead and get started with the November 9th Curriculum Instruction Committee meeting. I'm Sue Johnson, and I'll be the only one in person today. We have Mr. J, board member Mr. J, in via Google Meet with the use of technology, and Ms. Yoho is unable to be here this morning. So we have no public comment on the sign-up list, and so what I'd like to have is an approval of the minutes from the October 12th meeting.
So moved.
Okay, and I'm not sure who voting members are, so, but I had looked through them and they look fine to me, so we'll consider them approved. I'll vote to approve them, and that at least gives us majority. Then we have board member comments. Mr. J, what do you have to say this morning?
Just say good morning and welcome, and thanks to all those who are presenting today.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to receiving the updates. And I had not had a chance to speak to Mr. J previously, but Mr. J, I'm relying on you heavily for the middle school courses and curriculum updates. So just be forewarned that that's going to be your lead on that one, please. And
no worries.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize in advance for any basic questions I may ask, because this is like it's a new dive in for me. So please be patient. Thank you. All right, so Mr. Murphy, I go ahead and turn it over to you. I have the first agenda item is Advanced Academics Gifted and Talented Education Updates.
Yep, good morning. Good morning, Ms. Johnson, Mr. J on the line. Dr. Cuppett, our executive director, is unable to be here this morning. So once again, this is Scott Murphy, Director of Curriculum and Curriculum Instruction and Innovation. And we do have 3 topics today for the next 2 hours. The first is advanced academics. The second is a deep dive into the middle school instructional program. And third, some briefer middle and high school course guide updates. So first up is advanced academics. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Harris for this part of the presentation.
Okay, so good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to present the updates for gifted and talented education in FCPS. So as you will see as we go through today's presentation, you're going to see our work in alignment with COMAR for gifted talented education that was passed in 2019. And then at the same time, you're going to see where there are continued efforts and opportunities for growth as we move towards full alignment with that. So joining me this morning, and who will be doing the bulk of the presentation, are Dr. Jessica Reinhardt, who is the supervisor of advanced academics, primarily responsible for our gifted and talented education in our CPS. And then also Jen Bingman, Director of School Accountability and School Improvement. And all of the work that we do in AAE, we work directly in conjunction with other departments. And Jen's team is instrumental in helping us to monitor the work that we're doing in GTE. So having said that, I will go ahead and get started with just a brief overview of GTE, COMAR for GTE.
And thank you so much for this opportunity to provide you with the updates this morning. As we know, we have, as of 2019, begun our alignments with the COMAR for GT. And as a recap, the Maryland State Department of Education established this group of students as an accountability group. And so this has brought some much needed attention to this group of students in terms of their cultural diversity and their neurodiversity. And in addition to identification, we have some major areas in terms of programs and services, professional learning, and monitoring and reporting requirements. And we've continued to grow. It is honestly with tremendous gratitude to our central office partners and team members, school leadership, and our instructional leadership teams and teachers that we are able to share our efforts for cluster grouping in grades 3 through 5 at every school, our early talent development for every student at every school, grades pre-K to 2. And we know we have more work to do in this area, but equitable identification at every school.
And just as a reminder, so prior to COMAR for GTE, in FCPS, we had a regionally based magnet program in grades 3 to 5, and that was located in 3 different schools throughout the county, and students would go to those schools as they were identified. When we did a survey of our families in working towards this, they were very clear in saying, we want gifted, talented services at every single school. And so we went through a process of phasing out the regional program for GTE at every single elementary school. And the way we service that is through multiple ways, but cluster grouping is one way in which we have students who are identified grouped together in classrooms, and we provide the supports through training of staff to be able to meet the needs of these students. For early identification, of course, we do some early talent development, but then also our goal is to make sure that we're not missing students who are demonstrating gifted abilities in a variety of different areas, not just including a typical way through academic tests.
And so Dr. Harris mentioned increased professional learning for staff. We are required to align that professional learning with a separate COMAR that is referenced in COMAR for GTE. We have seen tremendous growth in terms of participation by teachers there. Just in September and October alone, we've seen over 250 teachers this year. We, of course, have increased our supports. So our students and our schools need supports with these students. At every school, we have our elementary advanced academics teacher specialists. We already had middle school advanced academic specialists, so we've now added to those supports at each of our schools. We continue to refine our screening and articulation processes to make sure that it is ongoing identification of these students. And again, as Dr. Harris mentioned, there is the phasing out. We have fully phased out the elementary magnet program, and I know that our caregivers and parents are grateful to have these services available in their schools.
So next we want to talk about what does our universal screening look like in FCPS. And so we actually utilize a triangulation method where we look at 3 different types of data in order to make sure that we are appropriately identifying students. Specifically, we look at a cognitive measure, which is our COGAT assessment, which is given to all 2nd graders and any 3rd or 4th grader that didn't already take it in 2nd grade. We were excited this year that we expanded it, and we're also doing a 2nd round of universal screening in 5th grade. And so we're super excited about having that additional opportunity to really look at our students. The 2nd measure is we have a local assessment that we utilize in order to determine how students are performing in our classrooms. And then the 3rd measure is a social and academic behavior checklist that teachers actually will complete in order to give how students are performing in classroom every day. We wanted to provide you the same look at the data that we did last year. So this slide is exactly the same, other than we added the data for this school year. And this is the number of 4th graders that were screened and identified for gifted and talented services. You will notice that we were in a nice increase up until this year, and then there's been a drop in the data. So you see the decrease. And the reason for that is, if you remember, students are being screened in 2nd grade. So these 4th graders were actually screened when they were in 2nd grade, which was the school year 2020-2021, which was also the year that students were virtual and hybrid. And so therefore, we knew that our assessment and the way that we were giving the assessment would have had some sort of an impact. And so therefore, we are indicating that that's the reason for why we see a decrease, but we're certainly looking forward to next year when we present these data, and we will see an increase again after we were having students taking the assessment last year and being universally screened. The next slide gives you a comparison to the gifted and talented student group as compared to our FCPS enrollment. And so each one of the colored bars are showing you the percent of 4th graders that are enrolled in gifted and talented services. So the colored bars are showing you the percent that are enrolled at fourth grade level. The red vertical lines are showing you the percent of students in FCPS are a part of that student group in fourth grade. And so you can see the differences between the student group and the enrollment in gifted and talented services as compared to the overall enrollment for fourth grade.
So as we move ahead with this presentation, I wanted to point out that as part of the reporting requirements, we are on a 3-year cycle in the state for a complete audit. So not only do we provide updates every year through our local ESSA consolidated plan, but we also have a complete audit. And so we are really, really pleased because we had several commendations. One of them being this addition of the universal screening of grade 5 students as they are in their year before entering middle school. And that began this year. In fact, we are currently screening those students. The fact that we have additional staff supports, that we really committed to making sure that our schools and our students had supports, is a major point of pride for us. We have fully aligned curriculum resources. I'm so grateful. We have partners in CII that we're able to work with to make sure that our teachers have resources in their hands. And also the addition of the GT Equity Dashboard in Radar, thanks to Mrs. Bingman and her entire team. And we continue with commendations. We use a longitudinal database to monitor identification, watch list students, as well as the performance of our students. And it's a robust database, but we believe that that is right and it is necessary. The revision of our early talent development program. We cannot thank our classroom teachers enough for partnering with us, giving us feedback, especially during the pandemic school year when we're trying to get back in and developing lessons that will help us talent spot at an early age. Additionally, the strengthening of the Young Scholars Program entering year 12. Such a point of pride for us in Frederick County Public Schools. And with any effort, especially with COMAR mandates, there are going to be next steps, areas where we want to continue to grow. And we mentioned this idea of talent spotting and talent development in both the intermediate, middle, and high schools among those groups of students. We know we need to continue the professional learning and continue working toward equitable representation, the use of local norms to find our student outliers in each and every building.
Okay, that's our brief presentation. The highlights of the GTE programming. So what questions do you have?
Mr. J?
I'll do a sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you great.
Okay, wonderful. My thanks to Jeremy and his team then. So I just want to also commend you on the screening. That's wonderful. I know in the past parents had to apply or teachers had the talent spot on their own. So having universal, I think, is a wonderful thing. Very glad about that. A couple of questions I want to ask, and the first one is about flexible seating in the conference rooms. So in these groupings, are students receiving flexible seating?
Are they receiving flexible seating within their cluster groups?
Yes. In those classrooms, yeah. One hallmark of the program when it was Magnet was that the students had like a great deal of choice, not only in their activity that they worked on, but also in how they sat. Some teachers allowed creativity and flexibility in how the room was set up, which really leans into a lot of kids' strengths and allows their gifts to shine through. Are teachers giving that flexibility in their classroom? Still?
So, Mr. J, I really love that question because I mentioned just how diverse our students are. within the cluster groups. And so when we talk about the specialized needs of these students, we know that flexible seating and options that are going to best meet the needs of the learner continue to be an ongoing focus. And so as we dive deeper within the professional learning, that certainly does come up during a professional learning, but our teachers are, I think all of our teachers have been empowered to provide students with flexible seating options, but we can continue to do so in that area.
I was just informed that during the pandemic, coming out of the protocols, that things were taken out of rooms like, couches or bean bags were removed from rooms, and rooms became a lot more sterile. And I wasn't aware if that changed at all, and we're able to get back to the teachers being able to, have flexible seating and options in the classroom. For full disclosure, my child was a magnet student, and in the classrooms he was in, those flexible seating options, I saw him and his peers really took to that. It wasn't the same seat every day. It was, different ways to sit, different ways to engage in the lesson, and that choice. So I think it became a holistic thing. As an educator myself, my first line of instruction is my classroom setup. So I just want to kind of put that out there. We're looking at that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely during the pandemic, we have to take the protocols of spacing and those things. But now that we are coming out and we're getting back to whatever the new normal is, some of those things are back into the classroom to allow for that creativity and flexibility of lesson and instructional design.
Okay. And I think then we also offer criticism, yes. So we're offering students choice in how they approach their lessons in these classes. Yes?
That's part of the instructional program. And so when we talked about the fully aligned curriculum resources, it's not only what all students are receiving, but what are the extensions and what are the different ways that students are able to demonstrate mastery of content material. And so you're absolutely right there. And then also when we talk about flexibility within the classroom, there are also students who may have strengths in some areas with skills and then not as much skills in other areas. And so we're able to pull those students into some of the creative, gifted, and talented learning based upon their areas of strength so that we can continue to elevate them as well.
Okay, wonderful. And then just a question, one thing was always on my mind with SCPS is that we did a great job identifying, we're actually even more so now, we're identifying our elementary students as gifted and talented. And then what happens is, some of it is the blame is going to be, typical, middle school, teenage angst and growing up and, those kind of things. But what I always saw was a kind of, if our kids survived middle school, and they went on to high school to take higher advanced classes. So I'm asking for data tracking. Are we looking at our students who are identified for gifted and talented in elementary school? And as they go on to middle school, if they aren't in, higher level classes and they aren't tracking to be, high level classes in high school, are we stopping to look at those students and kind of checking on them? Because it was just great pitfall. I was very active in trying to amend while I was working with the high programs that we have kids in middle school who kind of fall in the gap, and some of them who survive take different classes in high school and they move on. It's because of social issues and it's something you can't really control all the time. But we are very mindful to check our students from elementary to middle to get them to high. So are we looking to make sure that we pull them along as an asking?
Absolutely, we really are required to continue to talent spot, but also monitor and ensure that our students who are identified from elementary, between that elementary to middle articulation, but also to the middle to the high and all the way through in terms of their planning for post-secondary learning experiences, to ensure that they are in the most rigorous coursework that is going to move them toward the achievement of their academic goals, their goals beyond our doors. And so we are cognizant of that.
And so with that, is there a probation semester between being identified and then falling out? Or is it like, if you have a bad showing in one semester, what is the time frame for, identification, never met and not had it.
We do not put the students on probation because when we do have students who have learning gaps or they are not making gains, it could be due to a variety of other factors. We don't ungift students. We monitor and we see what can we put into place to shore up any weaknesses that they may have while continuing to build upon their strengths and again, move them forward toward the most rigorous coursework that aligns not only with their strengths, but also in their areas of interest.
Okay, okay. That sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was going to ask some of the questions that Mr. J was asking. It must be a Johnson thing. And actually, in respect to the middle school courses and curriculum, I also, from all the feedback I have, and I actually do now have a large cohort of students that I know that are in middle school, and it is really a survival experience from everything that's being conveyed. So I know we'll talk a bit more about that, but like Mr. J said, like, are we tracking that persistence from elementary school through high school? Okay, because I didn't see that here, and I don't know if that's something that the board gets.
Yeah, so that's part of our articulation processes that we have strengthened from elementary to middle. The good thing is that we started the work of gifted, talented, and how to meet their needs in middle school before we even phased out the magnet program. We started a lot of training, and I know Mr. Saunders is here who helped to lead that work with us, but we did a lot of training in that area to strengthen the middle school understanding of gifted and talented students and the work that's being done in classrooms. And so we know that we're continuing to strengthen the articulation process. And the area for growth for us is making sure that those students are still being challenged in the high school levels. And our equity dashboard also helps us to monitor students from one level to the next level as well. Mr. Saunders, did you want to add anything else?
And we continue that training. So Dr. Reinhardt, do you want to talk a little bit about the extensive training we do for, our middle school teachers to talent spot as well as provide differentiated instruction?
Absolutely, yes. One of the things that I mentioned in the update in terms of our commendations was this idea of a longitudinal database. We have data on our middle school students that extends pre-pandemic because we know that the pandemic presented many, many challenges for us as human beings, but also for our students, of course. And we know that they may have had ups and downs in terms of their data, but in terms of helping our middle school advanced academic specialists and their administrators read the data, watch the students, make sure that if there are dips that they're able to rise up again and continue to achieve. Those databases help us move forward. And our middle school AA specialists have been instrumental in helping us to understand the students and their unique needs.
And I don't know if this helps, and maybe for this prior to lunch, but I think of middle school as kind of like microwave popcorn. You just don't know when they're going to pop. And so we're talent spotting all along because they may not be in a position in elementary school to necessarily show, but then do in middle school. And then again, there's popping that happens in high school as well, right? So I think that's the whole idea, is to capture the kid when they do demonstrate and show signs of that academic excellence.
And to your question, we have specifically looked at our math pathways students who are identified for math pathways in elementary school, and we've tracked their math programming all the way through middle school and high school to say, what type of track of math courses are they taking? What are their grades and what are they accessing? And so we do that type of tracking just to make sure that we're kind of following the student, seeing what kind of courses they're taking, see what kind of grades they're getting, and then making sure that we are looking at what our processes are and how can we upgrade and really support the student better.
And I love that you're both speaking to this idea of on-ramps as well. Do we provide on-ramps? And the answer is absolutely yes.
And is all the data capture and queries that managed through Radar?
Some of it, yes, but we also have Performance Matters, which is another platform that we have that's available for teachers and administrators. And then we also have reports in our eSchool system. So we have 3 different locations where you can get reports and get the data. But a lot of our personalized views just for FCPS is built in Radar.
And then is there a way that we So if it begins with a C, the word I'm looking for. Consolidate the data into one platform, and like what view do teachers have?
We do try to simplify it as much as we can, because we definitely hear that all the time, because what good is the data if you can't actually use it, right? We have too many different places. So we do try to streamline it as much as possible. A lot of every teacher has access to the data that is in Performance Matters. And so it gives them all of their students, and it will give them what student groups they're in. It'll give them their previous assessment history. It'll give them their attendance history, their grades. And so they can basically build a look of all of their students that they want to really personalize to see what is it that they need to understand about their students. And it gives them all that on like one dashboard.
So there's Radar, Performance Matters, and what was the third?
eSchool, which is our student information system, and there are reports within there.
And it is thanks to those reports that our middle school advanced academics teacher specialists are able to pull together resources and reports and work within their school teams to monitor the growth of the students. And so they receive training in how to read those data.
Okay. And then my other follow-up question to the equity lens is when you look at the data and you see a dramatic drop-off in Hispanic, Latino, farm students, economically disadvantaged students, what are we doing to address that? Because there's big gaps there.
So earlier is better. And that's the reason for beginning at that primary level, because our students come in through our front doors, and even before some of them have been through formal schooling or have benefited background from various camps, they're coming to us with some natural talent. And so it is our responsibility to build those experiences where they can demonstrate that talent, so we can spot that talent in more non-traditional measures. So our goal is to really start early, identify early, and often is the philosophy as we continue to move forward, so that we can grow those areas where we absolutely need to grow and achieve more equitable representation.
And because of the pandemic and we just were not able to capture all students through screening, that's why we added the additional screening process this year for 5th grade. And with the help of our elementary advanced academics teacher specialists, they're placed directly in our schools, working directly with our teachers to be able to spot students who we may have missed, who may not have been assessed as of yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I know the pandemic is nobody's fault, but I think it's incumbent upon the system to make sure that we're reaching students who, through no fault of their own, have fallen behind in identification and skill building. So I think, we need to make sure we're allocating resources I don't want to say catch up, but just give them what they missed, because I think they missed it. That's my assessment. What's yours?
That's the assessment through our elementary advanced academics teacher specialists. And so the board has, over the past few years, and passing the budget, has allocated additional staff to catch these students, to be able to increase the representation in GTE programs from our various student groups.
I also want to comment, because it is a benefit, being in the AAE department, because I have had the wonderful opportunity to work with my colleagues in the English Language Learner Office. And, one of the things that we obviously look at is the rapid acquisition of language as an indication that the students may need more. And so it is that breadth. It's not only just the depth of the data and what we can see on paper, but the breadth of data that we are able to see in our various partnerships, and looking at our students who are multilingual learners as well, to close some of those gaps.
I was just going to add, in our school improvement process at the middle school level, there are goals that include the demographics of our advanced courses mirroring the demographics of our buildings. So that is a goal where we're really truly giving a talent spotting objective.
Okay, that sounds encouraging. Is there any support, actually, because we're already thinking about the budget? Are you getting what you need? I'm sure the answer is going to be no. But now that you have the ears of board members, is there anything that you're looking for that we can expect to come in the budget that you think will be particularly helpful to advance the work in this area?
Well, we as we examine our opportunities to continue to have representation, we know that as we have increased our elementary advanced academics teacher specialists, we know that we could use more support there. And so that's something that you may see come across, but we're still in the early processes of the budgeting process. And we are very proud of our Young Scholars Program. And so we've been using a variety of different resources to support expansion of that program. And we're looking to continue to expand our Young Scholars Program.
Okay. Well, I'm a big fan of the Young Scholars Program. Personally, so anything that we can do to help support that within budget constraints. But, you know, I think that'd be great. I don't have any other further questions. Mr. J, given that conversation, did you have anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, I truly thank you for the fine efforts that you're delivering for our students, and carry on.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're switching over and then we'll.
Change the group. How come everybody was laughing back there when I said it? Is there anything that you need?
Who's up next?
That's me.
Okay.
Yeah, we're moving on to middle school courses.
Yes, good morning once again, Mr. J. This is Scott Murphy, Director of Curriculum Talking.
Good morning.
This topic is labeled middle school courses, but more specifically, some concepts and proposals for expansion of specific courses for next school year, really aimed at addressing what you've said a few minutes ago about transforming middle school from survival to really what we want is full engagement of all students, expanded access, and really allowing students to explore, pursue, and study areas of interest. Joining me for this presentation is Mr. Saunders, whom you know as Director of Middle Schools, but I also wanted to introduce the team in the audience. This is our curriculum team who's been working behind the scenes in the specific courses that we're going to talk about today in visual and performing arts, in world languages, and in career and technical education. So thank you to the team for all your work and for being here today. I'll turn to Mr. Saunders to get us started.
Mr. J, good to see you virtually, and Ms. Johnson, thank you so much. And I guess I'm the lead survivalist. I didn't realize that. I hope middle school is a little bit more than surviving, and hopefully after this presentation, you'll feel really good about not only what we're doing, but the future. So today's discussion, we are going to provide a little bit of background and the compelling why, some of the changes that we're recommending, the current state of the middle school schedule. Part of our recommendation is semesterizing current courses in the fine arts and practical arts, the implications of those things, and then next steps. We have a 3-year plan that we would like to share with you. So the compelling why is that we are not currently fully aligned to the well-rounded curriculum required by COMAR. We are meeting student needs. We want to meet student needs, and we do, with interventions and electives. And in previous conversations with this committee, we've talked about making sure that even those students who have high academic need, they also get electives. Expanding access, equity, and flexibility, responding to student interests, alignment to the high school pathways that are currently and what we predict will be in the future, the blueprint, and interest from stakeholders. And like I said previously, the board has asked that we really look at kids that are receiving multiple interventions, make sure that they have something in the day that they've selected that they want to pursue. So those are the compelling whys, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Murphy. And just a side note, it has been such a pleasure to be working with Mr. Murphy, and it's really glad to have you on board, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. And the two of us have been meeting extensively with middle school principals, many of our teacher leaders throughout the fall to get us to this point. So we also want to acknowledge the principals who have really been real important stakeholders and thought partners in getting us to this point. Mr. J, I'm on slide number 4 now. I want to start with the current state. And if I'm going too fast, slow me down so that you understand again kind of why we're here and what we want to do differently. The current state, this is what a typical grade 6 student or grade 7 student would be required to take in their schedule. Obviously, the core academics, physical education, and health. And what we've done historically in FCPS is a requirement of a food science course, a Lab 21, which is a kind of introduction into career and technology education, creative arts, which is sort of a survey exploratory course in the arts, and invention and innovation. Those courses historically have been required, which leaves students ultimately with only one elective in 6th and 7th grade current state. For those students who may need additional academic support or an intervention, that actually leaves them with no choice or option for an elective course, given the requirements that have historically been in place. So one of the things that we're proposing as a desired state to begin a transition next school year is to unlock more options for students through semesterized courses and some adjustments to what is required versus an elective. So this is just, this slide number 5 is just a snapshot of, to provide a visual of how we would open up more options for students by semesterizing courses instead of always having what has historically been year-long requirements. We wanted to show how this plays out for students as we begin to unpack this, because what we know is that middle school students have lots of interests. They have lots of talents. They have lots of areas that they want to explore in middle school, and we want to ensure that we're providing the access to do that. So we always have a student who is going to explore, and we want them to be able to explore in the fine arts, explore in technology, and also select electives. So by semesterizing, we're able to do that. We also have our student who is in the band, or in the orchestra, or in the chorus. And we want to make sure that those students are able to do that all year long, while also being able to select electives. Or we have students who are really interested in coding and computer science, technology, engineering, which again, we can customize options for those students to again, pursue areas of interest. Next slide, the other thing we've mentioned that we want to ensure and essentially provide a guarantee that students who do require additional academic support would also have access to electives in areas of interest. So this is a real big important part of our compelling why, so that we can create a world where every single student, regardless of what they may need academically, has access to elective courses and areas of interest. As you know, we also want to ensure that students have opportunities to explore world languages in middle school. That includes high school credits, as well as opportunities to do both a world language and a band or orchestra. So one of the things we've been doing with our principals and teacher leaders is just creating kind of these profiles of students that we want to make sure that we're keeping in mind as we program. So for the 2023-24 school year, some fundamental proposals that we are recommending to begin a transition over the next couple of years. In grade 6, we're proposing that the food science course that has historically been a requirement is no longer required, but opened up as an elective. Also pointing out that the food science course does not meet any of the current COMAR requirements in fine arts or computational learning. And as Mr. Saunders mentioned earlier, fine arts and computational learning in particular are emphasized in well-rounded curriculum accountability and in COMAR. Next, in grade 7, this should not be new. This has been communicated in the past that the creative arts course, which is a survey course, was scheduled to be phased out next school year. But what we're envisioning now at this point, instead of replacing creative arts with a single course, a course-for-course replacement, provides students with options and choices within the visual and performing arts rather than a single course requirement. And then lastly, in all the grade levels, our vision and our proposal is to open up new semester courses next school year, all of which would be adapted from existing full year courses that the board has already approved. The idea here is to take existing courses, existing content, existing standards, and instead of forcing students into a full year course, making it much more modular so that students can take it by semester or by year. So ultimately, this would all surface in a middle school course guide for next school year. The top part should look very, very familiar in terms of what students are required to take each year. But what we've highlighted in yellow is what would be new in the course guide for the 23-24 school year, which once again unlocks more options for students, creates semester options that gives students more choices, as well as brings us in better alignment to some of the state requirements in fine arts and in computational learning. Again, as we've studied this, we see lots and lots of students when they make course selections for middle school get their first choice of an elective, but not always their second or third choice of an elective. And we have students tell us in their registration process the courses that they're interested in. And so by opening up semesters, this will allow many, many more students to have not only their first choice of an elective, but a second and a third. This does require some work in the curriculum department. So this slide number 11 on the left is our current courses that are offered by semester. That is Food Science, Lab 21, Creative Arts, and Invention and Innovation, current state. But what the team here is working on, has been working on, is again taking existing year-long courses, adapting them to make them more modular in a half-year format while keeping all of the same content and standards. This work is well underway, and we would like to bring to the full board in December an action item to allow us to take these year-long courses and essentially cut them in half with the existing content and standards. There obviously are a lot of implications when we open up these many options for students as we think about staffing and scheduling. So Mr. Saunders is going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there are implications when it comes to staffing and scheduling and making sure that we align to the COMAR regulations. The good news is that we don't believe that this will cost more money in staffing. We do believe that there will be potentially some certification issues, not reducing the number of teachers, but maybe having them not have the course that they once. Food science is an example of that. And retooling opportunities for teachers would be a priority, so that they have the ability to make sure that they are feeling comfortable with any new course that they might be teaching. This is not unusual, though. This is something we do every year. The fine arts and practical arts at the middle school level are always based on student interest. So there's always retooling of teachers when we go about having them address the electives that students select. We do know with scheduling that there are variables. So schools that are smaller and schools that are larger have different variables and different experiences with this. So we are recommending that we go slow and we take this incrementally, and so that we can address any challenges that might come up. We also realize the context in which we're in, that the blueprint is on the horizon, and this falls into a greater context of potentially a schedule change that may need to be had because of the 60-40 teacher instruction versus planning. So we also don't want to go too fast where we're ahead of ourselves on the skis, and we realize that we may need to make some changes as a result of the blueprint. But we believe everything we're recommending will fall nicely, no matter what happens, into the future with the blueprint. Did you want to add anything to that?
Just the long term.
Yeah. So we do have a 3-year plan, and once again, contextually, we want to keep this in the idea of where we know we are, where their blueprint is coming. We believe these 3 years of actions will set us up well to be able to not only address, most importantly, our student needs and interests, but also set us up for success when the blueprint is fully rolled out. With that, we're open to any questions that you might have.
Mr. J.
All right. I want to thank you all for presenting. This on the whole is very exciting. I'm always glad to see improvements in middle school. Actually, it's one of my my dear heart in teaching. I spent several years teaching middle school, and so I just love those folks, and I'm so glad to see that some trips coming that way. I did have some questions on the creative arts. So I would actually just, hearing you speak about it, I got more clarity. But initially, the phrase saying eliminating creative arts, it just sounds bad on the face of it. So, but as you spoke, you kind of said like this, we're retooling nothing more choice in the arts. And I didn't get that from reading through the material the first time. To the public, that's really important. But you know that we're not eliminating the arts. So I thought, I'm like, we're getting rid of the art class. I didn't see that in the first go around. And we have a very I would say engaged teacher of the year for SCPS, who's an art teacher who wants to expand the arts. And so anything eliminating arts doesn't sound good.
Yeah,
That's the first thing.
thank you for pointing that out, Mr. J. And just to say it in a different way, and really for the public to understand, our teachers to understand, that particular course is being phased out, but in its place would be students being able to choose from visual art, music, theater. And so absolutely the goal here is to actually expand and grow opportunities in the fine arts.
Yeah, I would just say phrasing on that one.
Yep.
So the next one, so I wanted to see how this, again, overall, this is wonderful. I think this is what we want to see happen for students in middle school. To keep that joy and excitement and being able to learn new things and have choice is going to be wonderful for them. But I'm asking about math advancement. A lot of times, I know of students, and actually I had one of my own, who had to have a schedule changed around and moved around because they were in advanced math classes. And so how does that play into what you're proposing here?
So currently, our most advanced students are taking a pathway in which their 8th grade year ends in a semester of algebra and a semester of geometry.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the school in which you're in, you potentially could take that geometry virtually. And we know that that's not necessarily the best model. And that's what we're proposing in year 2, to revisit the pathways for students and potentially have a reorganization of what that advanced pathway would look like. And that's where that conversation in year 2, and we've already started to, preliminary begin the discussion, but that's where that work would happen, and that's year 2. And I think that's what you're referring to, Mr. J, is the math pathways.
Yeah. And it's actually, so that's what my student went through. There was a time when we worked with the teacher, Miss Her. She was amazing. And the class was it was virtual, but so the student was also still guided. So there's a virtual class within the class. She was in a class that was teaching a different level of the math. And the advanced level, students were actually online in the class, so they had real-time support. So I would not at all say throw away the virtual option. That's going to give you capabilities to offer classes that you may not be able to offer otherwise. So if there's somebody who wanted to learn German, but you could offer it online, but they sat in the Spanish class with some support, or just some kind of, encouragement, they could take that, German online if they were able to. And the kids who are looking to do that will probably be able to be motivated and be, able to handle that kind of opportunity. I don't want to say, oh, virtual is bad, virtual is bad, virtual is bad. Virtual is useful. I'm virtual right now. We've got educators in our system who've got their degrees, virtually. I saw a wonderful educator, Jimmy Powell, who got University of Phoenix. And so I know that virtual is not all bad. This is how you use it. So I want to encourage us to not look at virtual as throwing it out. It's a tool we have to use. But I like what's happening here.
Mr. J, can I just share something with you?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm excited to share with you, for a second year in a row, to your thinking, we have offered a virtual French 1 class where it couldn't be offered in 4 of our middle schools, but we had enough student interest where we were able to, for the last 2 years, have a world language teacher teach virtually. And we have about 71 students, I believe. Dr. Cash, is that correct? 71 students who are virtually able to take French 1. where they wouldn't have been able to do that. So you're thinking, I agree 100%, and we're just kind of putting our toe in that to figure out what other courses may be similarly able to be offered. But that's, we've had success the last 2 years, or a year for sure, and we're now into the second term of the second year.
Okay. And then I want to ask about your feedback on the on the process so far. What has it been like?
I'm sorry, I missed that. Could you?
Teacher feedback on the planning.
Do you mean the topics that we presented or the specific virtual courses?
You mentioned before about having teachers who are going to be certification changing and looking to be open for different reasons. And so I'm asking about in terms of like, are teachers, is there a lot of anxiety there? Are they feel equipped to make these changes? Or how is that?
So based on the engagement we've done with principals and teachers, there seems to really be a win-win here in terms of access for students, equity for those students who need academic support, as well as, again, opening up those options in areas where teachers are skilled, are certified, and are able to teach those courses. In most cases, we project that we will grow in numbers of students accessing the visual and performing arts, computer science and engineering, and potentially world languages. There may be some shifts that happen with something like a food science course that goes from required to an elective. So that does always create some questions that we're trying to answer with teachers, but we've studied the certification and the credentials of all of our teachers, and all of our teachers who have specific certifications in something like family and consumer science all have other certifications in other areas, which opens up options for students in the master schedule and for teachers in the master schedule. The other thing that Mr. Saunders mentioned earlier that we want to be very clear on is that this is going to be incremental. This is going to be year one of a multi-year transition, and in no way going to be one size fits all. So schools are going to be making those determinations based on the people they have, the staffing they have, the areas of certification that teachers have, especially this first year as we make this transition.
And Mr. J, as you are well aware, like I said, because we already have a registration process that is based on choice, these decisions are made yearly anyhow about how many sections will be offered based on student interest. So this is not totally unusual in the fine arts and practical arts world that, as a teacher may leave the building and program may rise in popularity or fall in popularity. So that's kind of what we face as middle school folks, based on the reputation of the teacher if you have an elective.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, my turn. Mr. J asked some of the same questions I was going to ask. And I know you've given feedback saying that it doesn't seem like it'll be a heavy lift for teachers, but I would just like more reassurance. So this for my own comfort factor, because if someone came to me actually someone did come to me and ask if I would teach 2 new courses, and I just was talk to the hand. So, I think I want to make sure that our staff, I'm really cognizant of the prep time for staff to move into any new courses. So please, I would just really feel better. I know I'm hearing warm fuzzies right now, but I want to hear it from the boots on the ground. So if you could somehow percolate that up, I would really appreciate that. And then secondly,
If I could,
yes.
just to that point, we will. And
Okay.
the folks here have already been talking with their teachers about that very topic. And change is hard. It'll be an adjustment with the way things are structured, but I just wanted to emphasize that nothing new is being introduced in terms of content
Right.
and units and the standards that they have been teaching. It's really chunking it and making it more modular and shorter in a semester instead of a year.
And I would just add to revisit the compelling why. Like we have to do these things too. So just,
It makes me nervous, that's all. Because even if you restructure a course and you take something that's a year long and then you make it a semester based, that requires a lot of effort. At least it does in my world. So everything needs to change. So I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of workload it will require to make this happen. I'm also a little skittish about the blueprint and demands of that, and that I'd hate to see us going in a certain direction, have to put the brakes on and then change. So just be super cautious in that regard and make sure we're really following that, because that's not, again, an area that I'm really focusing on. I know we have many staff here that are working on that, and I trust that the work will get done. But just from my perspective, I just have a concern that, there's going to be something that we're not doing that we should be doing. And nobody wants to run 100 yards in one direction just to be told they got to turn around and run back 100 yards and then go 100 yards in a different direction. So this want to be sensitive to that. And then third, just the logistics of moving those courses to the semester-based model, and then organizing schedules. Are we confident that that is going to be a manageable process?
Yes, the short answer is yes. There's a technical side of it, right? There's a technical side in eSchool that you heard about earlier, the way courses are set up, course numbers. So there's a technical side of it that will be new work for counselors in particular, who are the ones who are actually putting in the system what courses students have selected. We've met with them and have to give credit to that group to really be kind of all in on the options we want to open up for students, knowing there's going to be a learning curve with having to do things a little bit differently in the system. Again, the school master schedule obviously is really complex. And that's why I said earlier about doing this incrementally in ways that work for each individual school based on their size, based on their staffing. Because that movement into a new way of scheduling will obviously be new complex work for schools, but done in a way that matches where they are right now. So we're confident that with support, with training, with some of the systems that we have in place, that we'll be able to accomplish or overcome the logistical challenges.
I mean, even just with rooms, just scheduling rooms for certain kinds of classes, because I'm sure, a music class can't be held in any kind of room. And so I just, again, the logistics there are daunting for me. So I'm not in your spot.
and just to give you some assurance, first of all, high schools are semesterized, so we have lots of experience with doing semesterized schedule, and there are certain courses already semesterized in middle school. So I do see it as additional tweaking and maybe some work with Jen's team. We've already started to work through that, but for sure we will have to create new systems, but I do think that it's very manageable.
That's wonderful, because I'm looking at August 2023 is just around the corner. It might seem far away, but we're already in November, and then we have December, and then January, and you're talking about having this all implemented like eight months later. So in my day-to-day world, usually things take longer than that to implement and schedule out. So like we're doing a year ahead.
Well, as a good fortune, it sounds like they've already been
So,
working
yeah,
with principals.
that's great.
And so principals have already been involved. They've been helping with the planning. They've been talking to their teachers. Like anytime principals are involved in looking at change, they're talking to their teachers, they're thinking it through with them, and then they're bringing that back. So I think with their involvement as already being part of it, that's going to help ease it. And then, of course, the curriculum specialists always do a really nice job in supporting their teachers. And so they'll have a support system that will be able to support them. So
I'm just super sensitive to adding workload to our teachers. So as I'm sure everyone can appreciate. And I'll just wrap up with my final comment. And this is one of the joys of being able to help represent FCPS is when you come to a meeting and immediately people are just extending goodwill and appreciation for collaboration with their colleagues. Nobody's there trying to say, I did this. You all are all sharing the glory and saying, hey, we wouldn't have been able to do this if it wasn't for, Mr. Murphy saying, without Mr. Saunders, and then you're both saying, without the principals and the curriculum specialists. So it is really a team that I think is invested in our students. And for anyone who's not like mindful of those kind of comments, they just are very impactful for me to just hear everybody giving love on everybody else. So thank you.
We need each other.
We all need each other. That's right. And I need you to help me, not to worry.
Well, we
Thanks.
do
So
love the word,
apologies, I have to
don't
step
worry.
out. Apologies.
That's okay.
It's my heart. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Mr. J. Thank you, Mr. J.
So what,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
thank you. So thank you for that, Ms. Johnson. And as a next step, now that we've had this conversation, we will be engaging with a lot more people because we really didn't want to get too far ahead of this committee or board as we think about next school year. We will be bringing a specific list of those semester courses to the full board in December as another next step.
I really don't see how you'll find resistance from the board. I can't speak for them. But if we're doing this to meet the needs of our students, that's something we're all invested in. And as long as we're meeting the needs of our students and you feel like we can accomplish that, I personally can't see any resistance. But you never know. But I would feel confident. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to move to the next item?
I think it's just me solo.
So this one was meant to be quick. I cannot see that very well without my glasses. Where's the? There it is. So this is just sort of a natural segue from the conversation we just had to much more explicit sharing of information with you about what is being drafted into the middle and high school course guides. Those course guides get published every year right around Thanksgiving into December as we start planning ahead for the next school year. So there are some specific things that we're recommending go into those course guides that reflect some of these changes we just talked about for middle school, but also some minor things in high school that build off existing programs. Joining me is Dr. Christine Pearl, Supervisor of Career and Technical Education, because many of the high school things that you'll hear about directly impact CTE. So first, middle school. You just heard about middle school semester courses adapted from full-year courses. There was a slide in the last presentation about specifically what those are that will be surfaced in the course guide as both semester and year-long options. We would like to expand computer science opportunities to grade 6. Currently, those courses are exclusively in grades 7 and 8. We'd like to take the existing content and expand it to grade 6 so students can engage in computer science from the minute they walk into middle school. And also the digital media arts, which was a new course that was already developed, was approved previously, will be appearing in the course guide for the first time. So I wanted to draw your attention to that. At the high school level, many of the technical adjustments in the course guide have to do with what we call program completers or graduation completers. And so just wanted to provide a quick refresher on what we mean by completer. In order to graduate from high school here at FCPS, students need 25 credits. And within that requirement is something known as a completer. That completer is basically a multi-year sequence either in world languages, in CTE, and now what is being phased out is advanced technology. So when students look at their graduation requirements and progress through high school, one of the requirements is this completer. So now there are essentially two options, with the third being phased out. Option 1 is 2 credits in the same world language, plus additional electives to get to that 25. That's one way that students meet what we call the completer requirement, is 2 years, 2 credits of a world language. The second option is successful completion of a full CTE program of study that has been approved by MSDE. It's another way to meet the program completer for graduation requirements. And the third, which is now being phased out, had previously been in advanced technology, where students could take a sequence of 2 advanced technology courses to earn a completer for graduation. That is being phased out by MSDE. So Dr. Pearl is going to talk a little bit about some of these programs of study that are completers for students, which is why we just wanted to frame that before we jump into the specific programs.
Good morning. So the first one we are asking for your support is for a 4-course dental assisting program of study at the CTC. This is an approved program of study by MSDE, and it meets the requirements of high skill, high wage, and in demand. And in fact, we have identified significant workforce need and overwhelming support from the Frederick County Dental Society. We have applied for a $150,000 innovation grant, which would fund the equipment and the materials of instruction. We are working with facilities to identify space, and we have requested a position in the budget, so we will hear some needs coming up. And if all of these stars align, we do intend to begin this program next year, which means we will come back in the spring to share additional curricular components. Okay, the next one is our construction design and management program. As Mr. Murphy shared, as MSDE through the graduation task force several years ago, they are no longer recognizing advanced tech. So what we are doing is just moving our architectural engineering and design advanced tech program to the new MSDE approved completer, which is architecture, engineering, and construction design. So we know with a few minor curricular changes, this will allow us to continue to address the student interest in that pathway and also meet the MSDE requirements. And then lastly, for CTE, in working with Kathleen Schlappel, we created a work group over the summer consisting of principals, work-based learning coordinators who serve as SSL advisors and school counselors to examine our current practice through the lens of consistency and common expectations for the SSL course. And they came back with several procedural recommendations. The recommendation that we're talking to you about today is changing the name to Peer and Community Engagement Experience, or PACE, because that is a mouthful, which will again better reflect the expectations of the service to others for that course. And those are all the CTE.
And the last two updates that would surface in the high school course guide, one is in the Academy of Fine Arts at Thomas Johnson High School. There is a musical theater focus that has been in development. These courses would be appearing in the course guide for the first time. We are also, the last bullet, developing additional half-credit electives. The idea of opening up options and access for students, particularly, you may recall, there is now the Health 2, the second half credit of health that's now required next school year. So it's going to be important that we have other half credit electives that students have access to alongside the new health requirement. So national and global issues in social studies, as well as American popular music and visual and performing arts, are 2 additional 0.5 credits that are being added, and there'll be more to come in following years, given the impact of this Health 2 course, new graduation requirement. So that's some of it's very technical in nature for our course guide, but we did want to share with you what's being proposed to be new and different as we publish this for next school year.
Okay. Since Mr. J. I understand how the standards change and that we need to adapt to that. So caught my attention the most was with the dental assistant, and as a new program being potentially funded, that would be contingent upon funding from an innovation grant.
Yes, we should find out very soon.
Okay, I know. It's probably, I think it was around 20 years ago. I do believe FCC had a dental assistant program. It sunsetted, and now it's back up. So, what is the Is there any collaboration? I think they're identical programs. From what you're saying. So,
absolutely. So we are
enlighten me.
We are working with them. We visited their program at the Monroe Center. So I worked with Dr. Molly Carlson and the program managers. They just had a personnel change with the program managers for health. And our intent is, in fact, for the final 2 dental courses to offer dual enrollment.
Okay.
So that
That's where I was headed
FCC
to
will
next.
continue to be involved,
Because
yes.
if we were offering identical things, is that gonna cannibalize enrollment potentially for FCC? And I'm not speaking as, I know I work there, but talking about community dollars and making sure we're providing appropriate pathways and why would we like potentially catch a student earlier when they can go into the same thing or dual enroll? So continue on that to help me
So
understand.
we have actually, and for part of our grant, we did receive a letter of support from Dr. Hawkins.
Okay,
So FCC is in full support.
okay. Well, that's good.
With again, the dual enrollment course being the capstone that is being emphasized.
Mhm. Okay. And then I'm thinking anything we can do to improve the fine arts area is super. So carry on and let's just hope that we can fund. I think there was 2 positions I believe that were on our budget for contemplating last year. I have so many things, but I think we only approved 1. I believe. Yes, I see some headway in there. Okay, so at least we're making some headway. I would like to make more because again, as we're reflecting, we talk about what we're doing in the state, but what's important in Frederick. And the arts are very important in Frederick. So, and I'm not an arts person, but I realize how important, and I'm aware of how important that is to our community. And so I think it's important that we're giving opportunities for our students in that regard. So do you think we're doing enough in potential expansion and changing opportunities over at TJ?
Well, first of all, if you think about the conversation that we had earlier about middle school, that is critically important, that we are developing a pipeline early on, elementary, middle, into these pathways that exist in high school. Secondly, as Dr. Harris mentioned earlier, we're still pretty early in the budget process, but additional staffing support for the Academy of Fine Arts at Thomas Johnson is certainly a top priority to continue to expand the infrastructure of how that program that runs at TJ. Again, in the course guide here, you see expansion of an additional focus area in musical theater. So hopefully, put all this together, middle school growth, additional staffing and infrastructure, new coursework, kind of all aimed at continued growth of a robust program in visual performing arts.
And again, I know things change over time. When I attended college, our bands were never as good. I went to Towson, and our bands were never as good as Morgan's and some other schools in the Baltimore area. However, when I went back for a football game, probably 5 years ago, the band was excellent. And I was like, what happened? And what I learned is that they offer substantial scholarships to students who agreed to perform in the band. And so that is, as another scholarship opportunity, like what are we doing to help ensure that we're creating versed and articulate, I don't know what the terms are, musically proficient students that could use that, parlay that into further opportunity. Again, I can play like one song on the piano, but I think it's really important that we're providing these opportunities for our students. And it's just kind of a real eye opener when I can see the difference at my own institution that I graduated from, where we had a really band to a really good band through the vehicles they put in place there and the opportunities for scholarship for students. So what's the bigger conversation going on with the whole area of fine arts? That's what I want to know. Who are we talking to in the community? Now, I know this is a broader question, but it's just like, are we doing projects to create more art in the city? The wings, how many cities now have wings where you can go up and take your photos in front? What are we doing with respect to that? And again, I'm taking out any bias I have, but if you look at some of the funding that the county received, a significant amount of money was from COVID recovery was distributed to artists to discontinue doing their art. that was not an insignificant amount of money. It was substantial for people to go back to their crafts and work on that. So again, I think it's a reflection of our community value. And this is coming from someone who I can't draw, I can't sing, I can't, anything with that. I'm just, pass to the next person. So,
I think you're speaking her language. This is, Kim Hirschman, our curriculum specialist for secondary visual and performing arts. So let's
okay.
let her just address some of your questions and passion around this.
Yeah, I mean, these are excellent questions. It probably is an excellent topic for its own meeting, if that's perhaps an opportunity that, could exist in the future. I will say that there has been a lot of change in the last few years that are pushing us towards being able to serve more students and then looking towards that college and career readiness in the fine arts. So the middle school programming, I will say, is probably going to be the most impactful change that we've had in, I would say, decades in FCPS, because all of that growth that will occur at the middle school theoretically will go into the high school as well. And right now we have some situations where, students come in from 4th and 5th grade and they play an instrument or they sing, and then they have one choice. And what happens if they don't get that one choice? And then when the school can't staff that choice and we lose middle school chorus, for example, now we don't have a circumstance where every middle school is offering band, choir, orchestra. So things always sort of take a hit and there's been an ebb and flow, but changing the middle school will probably offer an opportunity for more consistency across the board in what we can offer for students. Our all-county music ensembles have had growth in the last 2 years post-COVID, so we're looking forward to seeing those continue to grow. I will also add that, of course, having Jonathan Kurtz from the Academy for the Fine Arts as the Teacher of the Year and a Maryland Teacher of the Year finalist has been really impactful with the conversation, bigger picture. There have been times when it feels like the voices for the arts have been kind of small, but I feel like now we're growing and those voices are mightier. And I appreciate all of the compliments that you gave about the collaboration, because that's been a huge part of this as well. I couldn't, ignore all of the collaboration with my curriculum colleagues and directors and supervisors. I will say that the conversation of arts in Frederick continues to expand. With FCC, for example, we are bringing back their middle school band camp program through Kids on Campus. So we continue to work with FCC on how we can support that. Dual enrollment is an opportunity for students in fine and performing arts at FCC. We're looking to expand those opportunities for high school-based dual enrollment, as well as, of course, on FCC's campus. As far as scholarship opportunities, it's great to hear you say that. I think the quality of our instruction at the high school level is really strong, and that's what's pushing kids to continue into college and get those scholarships. And we have very strong collaboration and communication with our local colleges and universities. So their directors, their arts teachers come out and do clinics with our students and form those connections and communications so that they can go to those auditions and access those extracurricular opportunities. Because we know for some students, they may go into music therapy, music education, music performance, they may go into arts education, art therapy. But for many of them, they continue to be a performer and they get that scholarship money that helps them out. And they continue to be lifelong performers. I mean, I teach at FCC and I have a music ensemble that has high school 14-year-old kids and I have a 90-year-old tuba player. So we know that the arts are important in Frederick and we just continue to try to make those strong connections.
You want to talk about the summer programs that you had this past summer?
Yeah, so last summer through ESSER funding, we did do a middle school visual art camp, which had incredibly positive feedback from students and families. And we also, the Academy for the Fine Arts did an arts camp for grades 3 through 5 for 4 of our local elementary schools. And the students spent a day in each of the focus areas. So they had a dance day, they had an art day, they had a theater day, and they had a music day. And again, the feedback from that was very impactful as well. So we hope that we can continue to provide those opportunities for students and increasing the access through, students being able to have that choice. They're not locked out of electives because of intervention. We know that the arts have so many positive impacts for students' motivation, social emotional learning.
Well, it all sounds wonderful. I would like to make sure we're carrying on those conversations and really ensuring that we have strong partnership with the community, in particular with the whole arts aspect of it. I remember having a conversation with the county executive prior to my even filing to run for the board. And I just said, if I could wave a magic wand, one of the things that I would do is create like a complete school for the arts, kind of like the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts. I'm like, Hagerstown is not known for its arts. How come they have that? And we, so we had this conversation about it. I just feel like motivated to help make sure we're pushing in the right direction or guiding in the right direction for something that is so important to the Frederick community.
I think a long-term possibility is that the Academy for the Fine Arts may outgrow the space at Governor Thomas Johnson High School. So that is perhaps for the Board of Education, a long-term consideration.
My proposal was to turn this into the school, but that didn't go over very well. So I guess because we don't own this and we rent it and it needs, like, there's too many things in place, but that was like, why not have our kids come here? We go back, this puts in a warehouse, anyhow, that was my thought. Because if we're doing it for students, I don't care where I work, if we're giving the students the best thing. So please don't think I'm trying to kick anybody out. I just want our students to have the best. And if it means that, I work in a shipping container, that's fine with me. So, thanks for everyone's hard work. When we have these meetings, you hear about what's coming. I feel just invigorated, and I just have like bright hopes for the vast majority of the work that we're doing. So I kind of needed today to help me just refocus on all the good that happens within our walls of our schools. And I just want to thank everybody for everything that you do for our students and this community, which is so important to all of us. Thank you. I have no other questions. We have Mr. Murphy, you ready? Unless anyone else has anything they want to add. We have future agenda topics.
Yes, we do. December 7th is actually the swearing-in ceremony. So hopefully you are aware that the start time for this committee has been adjusted to 8:30 a.m. that morning, is what is on the calendar at this point. And we have two items for that day. One is English Language Arts, and two, CTE, Career and Technical Education. The approval of library materials had originally been on the December 7th CNI meeting, but that has been moved to agenda item for the full board that evening.
Okay. Somehow I miss it. This is the first when I was looking at this is the first I'd seen this. So it's possible I've missed part of a meeting with the agenda setting with Dr. Dyson and Mr. Young, but I don't know how well circulated that is, because I think there are people expecting this to be a CNI topic. So how did this change come about? Does anyone know?
I think a few weeks ago, there was some public comment around library materials and some work that we've been doing internally. And so the suggestion was, I think, to bring it to the full board on the same date that was planned anyway.
Okay. I'm fine with that. And again, if it was a few weeks ago, there's a lot. I had COVID. I think I was recovering from COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my husband was in the hospital, so it's just been a rough few weeks. So,
but if there are any conflicts with the time change or the way these items look, just let us know.
Not with me.
Okay.
I'm the only representative from the board right now. So I think everything else is fairly standard to what we normally keep on the pattern. You'll probably answer that better. Yeah. Okay. So is there?
Yes. So to wrap up that last item, the list of those proposed course guide updates that we shared with you in the last item will go to the full board as an action item next meeting in December.
All right, and I'll make sure I cover that in this evening's board meeting, when we go over some updates. Okay. Does anyone else have anything for the good of the cause? No? Well, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day, and I shall see some of you later. But surely some of you will be around for a 3 o'clock work session and our 6 o'clock meeting. So thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.